today to do a very cool show about the new Ken Burns Bridge, and this has just been a great project. It came out to a beautiful structure behind us, and I was reading a piece the other day in the newspaper talking about the new express nonstop rail service that goes from Boston to Worcester, and they were boasting about the fact that it's going to cut the commute down to under 1 hour. In 1806, when this first crossing was attempted here, right at this site, actually, the commute from Boston was 2 days. So, and if you think that, riding in a train for an hour can be uncomfortable, a crowded train, just imagine riding in an open cart with wooden wheels and no shocks over a dirt road for 2 days. So, it's probably a lot better than that. All right. The reason that the bridge is at this particular site on Lake Quinsigamond is basically from Isaiah Thomas, not the basketball player, but the colonial patriot, when was a resident of Worcester at the time. He and some other folks decided to propose a straighter road from Boston to Worcester. And at the time, before the road was proposed, they were basically using an Indian trail, or parts of an Indian trail that had been here for centuries. So they wanted to have a straighter pipe to go from there, and they basically decided to do that. Isaiah Thomas himself had moved to Worcester from Boston, kind of during the lead up to the Revolutionary War, and he wanted to move his presses and his business out here to kind of keep himself protected from the British at that time, and to keep his, to prevent them from closing, actually, the Massachusetts Spy, which was his flagship newspaper at the time. So in 1806, a toll road was proposed. And they basically, the way they designed the toll roads back then was that under the premise that, hey, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So they drew a straight line from Worcester to the courthouse, right into Boston at their courthouse. And because they used the compass more than they used, took into consideration the topology, the road literally went over the rivers and through the woods and around swamps and up and down steep grades, and they probably would have been better off, as it turns out, if they went around some things instead of trying to go through them. That be as it is, that's why we have the road going through it, and that's why this site is where the crossing is. And the first crossing was attempted in 1806. I'm going to let Mike talk about that, because it's a pretty interesting story.
Well, the first floating bridge was put into place, and the first one to cross it was Dr. John Green from Worcester, who was instrumental in getting the Worcester Public Library up and running, and his family lived in and later gave Green Hill Park to the city. But he was a prominent part of that and was the first one to cross over it in his horse and buggy.
I think he also, correct me if I'm wrong, relative to your understanding of history, had some input in terms of getting rowing going back then.
I think he had a part in that.
Maybe had a part in that. And I think there was also a rowing structure right here at one point in time.
His boathouse.
His boathouse. It was virtually just a few feet away from us. But otherwise.
Okay.
So the first attempt of the floating bridge, that one didn't last too long, because the first floating bridge was actually 2 attempts at the bridge. They built the first one, it kind of swayed and buckled, and it was lost to the waves and the wind of Lake Quinsigamond shortly after it was installed. And they built the second one as an interim solution. And it wasn't until 1817 where they decided they were going to replace that bridge with another structure, which I guess was on piers, correct?
They were building piers and weighting them with gravel to push them down to the bottom of the lake. But what they didn't take into account were 2 things. One, the bottom of the lake wasn't even, and second, wood is buoyant. One morning, the workmen went off to breakfast, and while they were at breakfast, the bridge itself erupted. The wood went flying all over the lake. There was almost a log jam up and down the lake, and that attempt at having a bridge failed. So they went back to the original type of bridge and put in another floating bridge that lasted until 1862-63 when the causeway was put in.
That's pretty funny, because it's I'm thinking to myself, the workers that went for breakfast, someone had to tell the boss, right, that they got back from breakfast and the bridge was gone. So I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting. And
Also, the floating bridge was a bit of a rickety affair whereby horse-drawn and oxen-drawn carriages that would use it, again, this is the straight line from Worcester to Boston, well, their wagon wheels would sink down sometimes to the hub, I understand, and consequently it would panic some of the horses and oxen because they didn't know what was going on. They felt like they were attached to something and now they're drowning. So it might have resulted in a few casualties just because of that.
So there you go. So they put after the suspension bridge fell into the water, they decided and that was a pretty. Just go back a second. That particular event was obviously pretty well known because that was the only exact date that we have, besides when they actually dedicated the 1916 bridge. There was an exact date of when something happened. It was September 19th, 1817. That the pier bridge kind of fell into the water. Then it came with the pontoon system, which was a little bit more robust pontoon system, and that actually lasted right up until the early 1860s when they decided to build a causeway. So what were the good things about the good and bad things, I guess, the pros and cons about the causeway?
Well, I mean, the good things are it allowed for Worcester to continue to prosper and grow as a commercial, industrial city and town, in that it was a direct line to Boston. It was sturdy, pedestrian friendly. It could handle traffic. Eventually it was expanded a little so that a trolley could go across it. It allowed for also with the trolley to be able to take people from the city down to the lake on trolley lines to go to the White City Amusement Park. So it was really in the owners of property and the developers of the lake area in their interest to see a good bridge system to be able to bring people down to the lake, which it did. And again, I've said it before, it took 2 days at one point to go from Worcester to Boston. People didn't travel to Maine or Cape Cod in a couple hours' time on a super highway at 60, 70 miles an hour. The lake was, so to speak, then the go-to place, like people today go to Cape Cod, Maine, and the New England shoreline. The lake was the waterfront area to enjoy by tens of thousands of people.
So it stabilized certainly the crossing. That was a good thing, and it did play a role, a gigantic role in boosting the economic development of this area. And that's one of the reasons that Worcester's the second biggest city, an economic hub in New England. So that was a good thing. What was the bad news, Mike?
The bad news was it divided the lake. There was only one small opening between Ramshorn Island and the Worcester shore where boats could even get through. And the steamboats, it wasn't high enough for the steamboats to fit through without having a hinged smokestack. They would tilt the smokestack down, they could fit under there. So consequently, most of the steamboat traffic and so on was on the southern half of the lake, not the northern half. Plus, it wasn't very pretty. It tended to get overgrown, and after a little while, people decided they wanted to replace it, but it took them roughly 30 years of bickering and arguing over having a stone bridge, a wooden bridge, an iron bridge, how high it should be, how wide it should be, so on and so forth, until they finally came up with a proposal they could work with.
Oh, sounds like when we put the new high school in. Okay, so now we fast forward to 1916, and at this point in the history of Lake Quinsigamond, it was a vibrant recreational destination. And, we had Lincoln Park right across from us. We had a hotel on Ramshorn Island that you can see right behind us there. White City Amusement Park was already up and running at this point, and it was just a vibrant section of central Massachusetts. So they wanted to put in a brand new modern type structure. So describe that for us a little bit.
Well, they settled on a concrete structure, even though there had been a proposed steel bridge, which was the idea of H.H. Bigelow, the builder of the White City. And he actually went to the extreme of having a lithograph made of the proposed steel bridge. And the interesting thing is, in that lithograph, everything else around that you see was exactly the way it really appeared. The hotel on the island, his mansion just to the south of us here, the little Worcester and Shrewsbury Railroad coming down through Lakeview, so on and so forth, except for the bridge. But eventually they ended up with the concrete bridge that was built, completed, dedicated in 1919, and lasted until the brand new bridge was put in.
And the dedication, just to add a few words about that, was a big affair. I have some hand photographs where there was some to the north side of then, in 1919, the new bridge. There was some grandstands set up. They had a boat parade. Fireworks. It drew about 10 or 20,000 people. It was a grand affair. And I believe it was dedicated in September, right? Is that correct?
July.
Excuse me, July. Thank you. So, it was a perfect time of the year in terms of people wanting to go down to the lake. So it probably added to drawing a number of people. And again, at that point you didn't have TV and stuff like that. So that was an event, the dedication of the bridge.
No TV. Oh my goodness. So that was a pretty cool thing, and 20,000 people showed up, or reportedly 20,000 people showed up, which may have been an exaggeration or not, but it was still a pretty significant event. And this bridge also did a couple of great things. That it opened up the lake underneath here, so now boats could go freely back and forth through the lake, and which was a great thing. Around that same time, actually, the Lake Commission was formed, and I don't know if it was because they opened up the lake and boats could go easily back and forth over the lake. But one of the reasons that the Lake Commission was formed in the beginning was the fact that there were so many people getting hurt and some killed actually on Lake Quinsigamond at the time. So they needed to form a commission that would oversee the policing of the lake. So.
That's a story for another day.
That's a story for another day, exactly. And we really got our money's worth out of that bridge because that thing lasted just short of 100 years. It did have a facelift. I call it the New England Brickmaster facelift in the 80s, where they actually went through and they kind of reinforced the bridge a little bit on the structure of it. They did a new face on the thing, literally like a New England Brickmaster, and they widened the deck on the top. So it actually opened up the lanes a little bit and added some sidewalks. So the bridge that they tore down, to build this particular the new structure here, was the deck was completely different than the original bridge and the railings and all that stuff. And it was interesting when they tore down the bridge. A lot of people that approached the builders and said, "Hey, can we have a piece of the railing? Can we have this? Can we have that off the old bridge?" And the guy goes, "Well, you can, but you have to understand." I was one of them. But you have to understand that part of it was built in the 80s, like in '86, not in the 1900s. So it was. They kind of took all that stuff out and sold the scrap. So that was that. Okay, so interestingly, that brings us to the now portion of the Then and Now show, and that's the beautiful, shiny new Ken Burns Bridge. And this structure, it was part of the Accelerated Bridge Program. It was managed by Mass DOT, who actually owns the bridge, and it was designed and built by Middlesex Corporation, who brought this project in under budget and ahead of schedule. So we got to put kudos out to those guys. And from Mike and I, from a Lake Commission standpoint, I can tell you that these guys were a pleasure to work with. They did everything they told us they were going to do, and they didn't do the things they told us they weren't going to do. They really kept accommodated. They had safety devices in place, and they really made the construction of this thing a minimal impact for the size of the project that it was, both in the water, which is what concerned us at the Lake Commission, and on top of the traffic. Because, in my mind, the traffic never really slowed down. Even though they were building this bridge in the middle of the city.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can say.
Well, one thing I wanted to also talk about, we go back to the steel arch bridge structure, because it's amazing. And I got to hand this to H.H. Bigelow, how similar. It was the exact same kind of technology. It was basically a steel arched, decked bridge. And it was exactly the same technology as they're using here. I mean, they're using a different kind of metal and a different kind of girder here and whatnot. But if you look at the pictures of that proposed bridge and the new bridge, you're going to be amazed at
Similar.
how similar it is. And it's kind of funny that that's the design that replaced the bridge that they chose instead of that bridge in the late 1800s. Hey, go figure, right? And one thing I want to mention also about the causeway is that the causeway is actually still under the lake. They never really took it out. They took out some of it when they built the bridge in 1916, but the bridge, the 1916 bridge, actually sat on top of the causeway. So that's what was basically the base of the bridge. In today's technology, you can't build a bridge on top of a causeway like that anymore. And these folks actually had to go down with steel piles down to bedrock. So they had to go through the lake bottom down into where they actually hit the bedrock, the shelf in between the. Yep.
Again, the bottom is kind of V-shaped in terms of bedrock, so it was rather tough for them to drive some of the pylons. I believe they even had a problem with a couple that were torquing off to the side because they couldn't hit on, because it's not flat, it's V-shaped, so they actually torqued off to the side.
And we're going to actually have another episode that's going to talk about the construction of the bridge, because it's really kind of an amazing feat. We're going to ask the Middlesex guys has basically agreed to take us through on how that was done. And even some of the funkier things that happened, like they figured that the lake bottom, they were going to hit bedrock at 140 feet. When they got here, towards the middle of this bridge, it's actually, those piles are down 290 feet before they hit the bedrock. They had to reorder a new pile from Texas, which slowed things up, and they still came in ahead of schedule. But they had to go down and kind of regroup to get the whole thing down there. So it was an amazing thing. Because also the cool thing that they did about this, I'm going to let Mike, because he was almost solely responsible for the whole thing. No, I know he wasn't, but his name is all over the bridge. And in 1960, in the 80s, when they did, and I'm going to go back to this because it's a little bit historical, because this bridge also serves as kind of a museum of not only the lake, the region, the bridge crossings themselves, but it talks about the ecology of the bridge, and they basically, on the bump outs, they have 8 bump outs, and what they did was they put a panel, a full color panel, that basically the shape of the bottom of a canoe, that describes different aspects of the lake, and the recreational factor. One dedicated just to White City, one each dedicated to the city of Worcester and the city of in the town of Shrewsbury. One dedicated to the regattas and the crew races. One dedicated to the ecology of the lake. So it's actually kind of a live museum, and these bump outs are beautiful. They have like 14 seats on them, and they overlook the lake. It just gives you a great view of events happening underneath the bridge onto the lake. The other cool thing they did with the lake too, I got to point out too, is you can see these little LED lights over here. Is that this is designed to light up, and the LED lights can actually change color dynamically. And the topping on the cake is that they put these beautiful sail structures on the top of it. And that kind of went back and forth. And I want to say that the first time I heard of any concept like that was from our friend Mike Piker over here. The thought that they should have some type of decoration that was meaningful to the lake itself. Yeah. So and they really did a good job. At first, the first design that they had with these structures that are the shape that they are now, but they were basically solid metal with perforations in them so the wind could get through. And the big fear there was that they were going to get tagged by graffiti. So Middlesex came up with an idea. It says, hey, what if we made vertical cables instead? And it would actually kind of billow and flow like a real sail would, and it would look more authentic, and it would cut down the
windage.
The windage would cut down the ability to tag it with graffiti. And those also light up, and they also can do different colors. So they've really done a signature. I believe it's going to be a landmark. I kind of call it the sailgate. So that, we'll basically have sailgates on both sides of the on the lake.
Oh, it's going to look very attractive, and it'll enhance the area and make people, feel proud to, live in an area that is willing to, present itself well.
I think the nice thing, even so far, is that a week or two ago they had a regatta. even though it wasn't one of the larger ones. But
Head of the Woo, I think, and it was something else. There's a number of regattas on the lake.
yeah, okay, but going over the bridge on the weekend, there were probably 100 or more people on both sides of the bridge, not just the north side, looking at the panels, looking at the scenery, sitting on the bump outs, taking pictures and selfies and so on.
The bridge is 870 feet long from one end to another. It's 147 feet wide, which makes it a little over twice as wide as the old bridge. And the real design factors between the new bridge and the old bridge was they wanted the new bridge to improve traffic flow, which this does because it has 3 lanes on either side. And this structure is actually 2 structures. It's actually 2 bridges side by side. So they have an eastbound and a westbound lane. And it's 3 lanes on either side of it. They widened the sidewalks and put bump out areas on there, which are beautiful. And they also put in a bike lane and widened the shoulder, so that would be a little bit safer to travel on too. And probably the thing that I hear the most comment about is that people will tell you it was worth the $100 million just so I can take a left-hand turn onto Lake Avenue. So, you know, they did a lot of great things. They did all the stuff that they said they were going to do with the bridge. It has improved it, and that's kind of a historic. If you look at if you go back in history, every crossing that they put on here slowly improved the travel and commute time and improved commerce and improved all the other things. And Shrewsbury and Worcester both on both sides of this bridge during the construction here have enhanced the Lakeway District in Shrewsbury and up Route 9 on Belmont Street. You can see that they've widened the road, they've put in better lighting, better traffic patterns, a new turnabout over by UMass Medical. The great job that they did at White City over here, White City East. The whole boulevard type look that Route 9 has down now through there. So they've really done a nice job to enhance this area and make it as beautiful as it is.
Good evening, Worcester. Good evening, Shrewsbury. Give yourselves a nice round of applause. Oh, come on, this is a special day. We can do better than that. Give yourselves a nice round of applause. My name is Tom Tinlin, and I am your highway administrator. But more importantly for tonight, I also happen to be your master of ceremonies.
Hey, we're here with Karen Polito, Lieutenant Governor. Karen, you're the first speaker tonight on the lake, and kind of a new lake resident too.
Soon to be. But this means a lot to me personally, you know, as a lifelong resident of Shrewsbury and former selectman, and when I was a state representative, the planning for this started, and now to be here as our lieutenant governor to mark the moment like they did so many years ago, 1919, thousands came to dedicate the concrete bridge, and the community comes together, Worcester, Shrewsbury, this whole region, to mark this moment, and it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I love it. How do you think the bridge came out?
I just love this bridge. It's so us, and you know, the viewing plaques, the viewing areas, the history plaques tell the story of our past, but then the present bridge really captures, you know, who we are today. It shows progress, the whole emerging industry around us, and then it's just the span above it connects so many people, but then the span and below it, you know, this waterway is so important to our region as well. So there's just so much to say about it. I love the sails. I know that's been a bit of a debate, but I think the sails are beautiful, and I love the seals at each end connecting Shrewsbury and Worcester. Just terrific. Great job by all.
It's awesome. Hey, we're here with Mayor Joe Petty from Worcester. Mayor.
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Good. Thanks you for coming on for this. Oh, yeah. The turnout's got to be really, really good.
Yes.
I guess what do you think?
I think it's a wonderful bridge. It was a great project. It was a cooperation both Shrewsbury and Worcester and the state delegation and Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, and before that was Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray, and it was a good coordinated effort to get this done. So it's over $100 million investment, and it's done on time and under budget. So
that's not nothing in any account.
It's also going to create some good recreational opportunities now with the bridge the way it's constructed. So I'm looking forward to it, and I've heard more compliments elements. But I haven't seen it lit up yet. But when they're doing the testing, people are telling me when you drive by how wonderful the bridge looked and aesthetic. And so looking forward to it tonight. Great fireworks tonight here, so it's going to be a good time.
It's a great job. It's a great job. How many people do you expect to actually show up?
Yeah, I bet we have 1,000 people here now, so I bet you get about, it's a nice night, get fireworks going. People love fireworks, so you can see about 2,000 people here, if not more. So
I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
That's great. Oh, Mayor, thank you.
Peter.
Congratulations on a great new gate to your city.
Thank you.
We're here with Representative Jim O'Jay. And Jim, another person I remember seeing in the meetings when when they started first coming to Worcester to talk about the bridge and what they were going to do.
I had some things to say.
Yes, as always.
Yeah. No, this was a great night. When you look at the Accelerated Bridge Program, right, it was really around safety for us, right, making sure that these bridges that were falling down around the Commonwealth were, making sure we could get those done and get them safe. And then obviously, as you look across the way here and seeing the cars and the volume of the traffic going by, hugely important, right? But with Lake Quinsigamon here, right, we need to make sure that we can utilize this beautiful body of water and make sure that we can have boats that can actually sail under the bridge, right? And that was a big issue for me, if you remember back at the day. So I'm happy that we came to some pretty good understandings on what would happen here, and really looking forward to what's going to happen here tonight.
Now, we were talking earlier that there was a lot of public input and the designers took it to heart. They did, like the height of the bridge and the bump outs and the
bump outs,
the decorative part of it, which I guess some people wanted and some people didn't. But
I mean,
I like it.
If the truth be told, I was looking for a through arch bridge, right, which would more resemble like the Zakim Bridge, right? And everyone was looking at me like I had two heads. The cost was an issue, but as we hear tonight,
and build time too,
right? Yeah. And this bridge is coming in on time, before time actually, and under budget. So
everyone I talked to a person has been commenting on what a great project this was in the state and how kind of it all worked the way it should work all the time, but doesn't. So,
no, I agree. If you look at from the federal level, we got down to the local level. I can remember when we were looking at the design for the bridge, we had many meetings where we had the conservation commissions and the historical commissions from the town of Shrewsbury, the town of Worcester, and you had everyone really trying to come to an agreement on what the best project or outcome of this project would be. And I think when we see the bridge all lit up later on and it's completed on time, I think this is a great example of how things should work.
All right, so we hit the mark.
Yes, you did.
We hit the mark. Thanks to you guys for advocating and getting this thing out here for us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
man. Jim, it wouldn't happen without you. I'm not, trying to toot your horn here, but it certainly was a interesting meld of the federal government, the state government, and the cities and the municipalities around. So it really kind of all happened in the right way.
Well, I used to work for a guy named Congressman Joe Moakley of Boston, and he used to say there's no I in team. This represents a collaboration of city, state, and local officials, community leaders. I mean, people who are interested in this lake and all the history here, and so it all came together. And there's a boatload of federal money involved and this bridge, but I'm proud of it. I think it looks beautiful, and I think it's going to be a destination point as well as a place that we're going to travel across.
There you go, just like the old days when the people used to come here to recreate and do the stuff.
Absolutely. When you walk across the bridge, there are going to be plaques talking about the history and about Kenneth Burns and about all the stuff that's here, and it's wonderful. So this is it took a while to get here, but we're finally here, and we're going to have a great celebration tonight, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Representative, thank you very much.
Right.
Enjoy.
Good to see you.
Good luck.
Can folks please help me count down? We're going to count down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.